The moment Emily walked into that crime scene, her life would change forever. Little did she know, what seemed like an ordinary day would turn into a nightmare that not only shattered her peace, but also unraveled dark secrets she never imagined. What she found that day, her son at the center of a murder investigation, would set off a chain of events that would haunt them both for the rest of their lives. But that's just the beginning. What happened next will shock you. Welcome to Behind the Shadows, where we bring you the most thrilling, suspense-filled, and heart-stopping stories you can imagine. If you're someone who loves shocking twists and gripping dramas that keep you at the edge of your seat, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We promise you won't want to miss what we have coming next. It was an ordinary morning for Emily when she woke up to the sound of her phone ringing relentlessly. Groggy and disoriented, she answered the call. It was the police. The voice on the other end was cold and stern, yet strangely comforting, as if they were trying to prepare her for what was coming. Ms. Parker, we need you to come to the scene of an incident. It's about your son, Jason. Her heart skipped a beat. Her son, Jason, was a quiet, respectful 18-year-old. He had been spending his summer working part-time and helping around the house. Emily hadn't heard from him this morning, but that wasn't unusual. He liked to sleep in on weekends. But now, a lump formed in her throat. When she arrived at the crime scene, her mind raced. Police cars surrounded a local convenience store, their lights flashing in a rhythmic chaos that was all too familiar, yet utterly terrifying. Emily's legs felt like jelly as she walked toward the yellow tape that blocked her path. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you're not allowed to cross this line," an officer said, his voice firm but kind. "I need to see my son," Emily exclaimed, panic rising in her chest. The officer hesitated, then glanced at the entrance of the store. "Follow me." They walked to the front of the store, and Emily's heart sank when she saw her son. Jason was standing there, staring down at the floor, his hands cuffed behind his back. His face was pale, eyes wide, filled with confusion and fear. But it wasn't the sight of her son that shattered Emily's heart. It was the blood, spilled across the pavement, smeared around Jason's feet. "Jason?" she called softly, her voice barely audible. Jason looked up, his eyes locking with hers, but they didn't show relief. They showed fear. An overwhelming, undeniable fear. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. "Jason, what happened?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. I didn't do anything, Mom," he whispered. "I swear. I just found him." Her heart pounded in her chest as the officer explained that Jason had been the one to discover a local businessman lying lifeless in the store's back alley, blood pooling around his body. The police had arrived at the scene only moments later and found Jason standing there frozen, in a state of shock. They had no choice but to arrest him, believing him to be involved in the murder. But Emily knew her son. She knew Jason couldn't have hurt anyone. As she pleaded with the police, her mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of what she had just heard. Who was the man? Why was Jason there? As Emily sat in the interrogation room, everything felt surreal. She watched her son speak, with the detective, his words fumbling in his attempts to explain himself. Emily could see he was telling the truth. He had nothing to hide. But what happened next, what the detective revealed, would shock them both to their core. The detective, a tall, dark-haired man with a stern expression, dropped a file onto the table. He slid it toward Emily. "Ms. Parker," he began, his voice steady. "We've discovered something in Jason's background that we didn't know. He had no idea this would come up." Emily stared at the file, dread creeping up her spine. She opened it, her hands shaking, and found a photograph of a man she had never seen before. That's my ex-husband," Emily stammered. "But he died years ago," The detective nodded slowly. Yes, ma'am. It turns out that the man you knew as your ex-husband wasn't who you thought he was. He had connections to the criminal underworld, and this businessman, the one your son found, was involved with your ex-husband. Your son might have stumbled upon something that put him directly in harm's way. Jason had unknowingly uncovered a dangerous criminal operation, and the man who had died was involved in it. The detective's words were a revelation. Jason was just a pawn in a much larger game. The events that had unfolded were part of a deadly web of crime that had been circling Emily's family for years without her knowledge. But the most shocking revelation came moments later, when the detective told them the truth about Jason's father. Your ex-husband isn't dead, Ms. Parker, the detective said coldly. He faked his death, and he's the one behind the crimes. Emily's world came crashing down. Her ex-husband, the man she had trusted with her life, had been living a secret life, pulling the strings behind a criminal network. And now, her son, Jason, was tangled in it. The police worked quickly to clear Jason's name and apprehend those responsible for the murder. The case was far from over, but for Emily and Jason, their lives had already been changed forever. The bond they shared, the trust they had in each other, would be tested in ways they had never imagined. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this, where truth is stranger than fiction, and every twist and turn keeps you on the edge of your seat. Until next time, stay safe and always question what you see.